The truck stop diner sat alone on Highway 87 like a forgotten promise. It was the kind of place that existed in the gaps between destinations where travelers stopped for bad coffee and grease-heavy food before disappearing back into the vastness of the Arizona desert. The neon sign out front had been flickering for 3 years. Nobody had bothered to fix it. Nobody really cared. Ava Morgan had worked there for exactly 6 months. She knew this because she counted the days like a prisoner marking time on a cell wall. Not because she hated the work, but because counting was the only way to prove that time was actually moving forward, that she was building something, that her life wasn't just standing still in this roadside purgatory. She was 18 years old. 6 months ago on her birthday, the state of Arizona had handed her a garbage bag full of her belongings, a social worker's business card she would never use, and exactly nothing else. No family, no safety net, no one in the entire world who would notice if she simply ceased to exist. The foster care system had finished with her. Happy birthday. Good luck. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. The diner had saved her life. Not in any dramatic way, but in the quiet, grinding way that minimum wage and a roof overhead could save someone who had absolutely nothing. 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week when she could get them, tips that barely covered food, and a tiny room upstairs that cost her half her paycheck and smelled like decades of cigarette smoke that no amount of air freshener could mask. It wasn't much, but it was hers. For the first time in 18 years of bouncing between foster homes and group facilities, something actually belonged to her. The room, the small corner of the world where she was allowed to exist. The diner owner, a man named Bobby, who counted every penny like his immortal soul depended on it, had made it clear she was replaceable. There were always girls aging out of the system. Always someone desperate enough to work for scraps. Ava knew this. She felt it in her bones every time Bobby looked at her like she was already gone. So she worked. She showed up early. She stayed late. She never complained about the burns on her forearms from carrying too many hot plates or the way her feet screamed after 14 hours on cheap linoleum. She made herself useful. She made herself invisible. Invisible was safe. Invisible meant nobody noticed you enough to hurt you. Thursday nights were different. Thursday nights, the Iron Wolves rolled in. Ava had been terrified of them at first. She'd heard the motorcycles from half a mile away, that deep thunder that rattled the windows and made her chest vibrate like a drum. A dozen bikes, maybe more. All of them massive chrome-heavy beasts that looked like they could eat the highway whole. The men who rode them looked like they'd been carved from granite and violence. Leather vests over thick arms covered in tattoos. Beards streaked with silver. Scars that told stories Ava didn't want to know. They took over the corner booth every Thursday around 7, ordered enough food to feed a small army, and stayed until closing. For the first month, Ava had served them with her eyes down and her hands shaking. She'd grown up in the system. She knew what dangerous men looked like, knew how to make herself small and quiet and forgettable when they were around. But 6 months had taught her something unexpected. These men said please. They said thank you. They tipped really well, leaving 20s on $15 checks. And not once, not in 6 months of Thursday nights, had any of them grabbed at her or made comments about her body or treated her like she was less than human. Their leader was a man everyone called Iron. He was maybe 62, a mountain of muscle going soft at the edges, but still solid as a freight train. His beard was more silver than black now. Deep lines cut through his face like rivers through stone. He had the kind of eyes that had seen things, terrible things, and hadn't bothered to look away. But when Ava brought him coffee, he always said thank you. Always met her eyes when he said it, like she was actually worth acknowledging. Patch sat to Iron's right always. He was maybe 58 with a scar running from his temple to his jaw and one eye that didn't track quite right. The other bikers called him Patch, and Ava had never been sure if it was clever or lazy. Probably both. He'd served in some war somewhere. His jacket told that story in patches and symbols Ava didn't fully understand. The rest of the crew changed week to week. Different faces, different bikes, different stories. But Iron and Patch were constants. Anchors. The men around them orbited like planets around twin suns. Ava had learned to relax around them. Not completely. She'd never been able to relax completely around anyone. But enough. Enough to breathe normally when she approached their table. enough to occasionally smile when Iron made some dry comment about the coffee tasting like motor oil. They were part of her Thursday routine now, part of the rhythm that made the days feel less like drowning. Tonight was Thursday. November 3rd, the rain had started an hour ago, coming down in sheets so thick Ava could barely see the gas pumps through the window. The temperature had dropped 15 degrees in the last 2 hours. Arizona didn't get cold often, but when it did, it cut straight through thin jackets and thinner skin. The Iron Wolves had arrived right on schedule. 7 o'clock, motorcycles announcing their presence like rolling thunder. They'd shaken water off their jackets, complained about the cold, and settled into their usual booth. Iron had ordered coffee first thing. Hot as you can make it, Ava. We're frozen solid out there. And she'd filled their cups, taken their orders, retreated to her comfortable invisibility. Now it was 8:47. The dinner rush, such as it was, had died down. Just the bikers in the corner, an old trucker at the counter nursing his third cup of coffee, and Jasper in the kitchen humming something tuneless while he cleaned the grill. Jasper was 58, built like a barrel with hands that had worked hard labor for 40 years before landing in this kitchen. He'd been kind to Ava from day one, not in any creepy way, just in the way some people were naturally decent when they didn't have to be. He snuck her extra food sometimes, looked the other way when she took home day-old bread, never asked questions about why an 18-year-old girl was living alone in a room above a highway diner. The bell over the door jingled. Ava looked up from wiping down the counter. Two figures stood in the doorway, backlit by the parking lot lights, rain pouring off them, like they'd just crawled out of a river. A woman and a small boy. The woman was maybe 32, dark hair plastered to her face and neck. She wore a thin jacket, the kind you'd wear in spring, completely wrong for this weather. Her hands shook so badly she had trouble holding the door. Her eyes darted around the diner like a trapped animal looking for escape routes. The boy was worse. He was maybe 8 years old. Same dark hair as his mother hanging in wet strings across his forehead. Same hunted look in his eyes. But there was something else there too. Something Ava recognized with a sick dropping sensation in her stomach. Emptiness. Not the normal emptiness of a tired kid. The hollow, scraped-out emptiness that came from hunger so deep it lived in your bones. The kind that turned you into a ghost inside your own body. Ava had seen that look before. In mirrors. In the faces of other foster kids who'd learned that food was conditional. That sometimes adults decided you didn't deserve to eat. She knew that emptiness. God, she knew it so well. "Sit anywhere you like," Ava called out, keeping her voice neutral and professional. The woman flinched at the sound, actually flinched like words were weapons. She grabbed the boy's hand and pulled him toward a small table by the window, as far from the bikers as possible. She sat with her back to the wall, eyes fixed on the door. Watching, waiting, terrified. Ava grabbed 2 menus and walked over. Up close, the details got worse. The woman's jacket wasn't just thin, it was old, fraying at the cuffs. The boy's shoes had holes in them. Both of them were soaked through, shivering, looking like they'd been living rough for days. "Can I get you folks something to drink?" The woman's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Just water. 2 waters, please." "And to eat," the woman's jaw tightened. Her hands clenched on the table. "We already ate, just the water." Ava looked at the boy, really looked at him. He was staring at the menu pictures with an intensity that made her chest physically hurt. Pancakes, bacon, eggs, hash browns. His eyes moved across the laminated images like he was trying to memorize them. Like he was trying to eat them with his gaze alone. His stomach growled, not a small, polite sound, a deep, painful rumble that seemed to come from somewhere primal and desperate. The kind of sound bodies make when they're running on empty and starting to consume themselves. The woman's face went red, shame and fear mixing into something toxic. "We're fine, just the water." Ava nodded, said nothing, walked back to the counter on legs that didn't feel quite steady. She filled 2 glasses with ice water. Her hands moved on autopilot, but her mind was somewhere else, somewhere dark and familiar. Foster home number 4, the Hendersons. Ava had been 12, old enough to know better, young enough to still hope things might get better. The Hendersons had locked the refrigerator at night, an actual padlock on the door. They'd rationed her food like she was a prisoner. Breakfast, one piece of toast, no butter. Lunch packed by Mrs. Henderson, always the same. One sandwich, an apple, nothing else. Dinner, whatever the family ate, but Ava's portions were half the size of their biological children's. She'd been so hungry. Hungry all the time. Hungry in a way that made it hard to sleep, hard to think, hard to focus in school because all she could think about was food. She'd learned to steal. Crackers from the pantry stuffed in her pockets. Bread hidden in her pillowcase. Granola bars from the school cafeteria smuggled home in her backpack. She'd learned what hunger felt like at 3 in the morning. The cramps that twisted through your stomach. The way your body started eating itself from the inside out. The hollow ache that never really went away. She'd been invisible then. A ghost child that nobody saw. Nobody heard. Nobody helped. The social workers had come by once a month, asked if everything was okay. Ava had said yes, because what else could she say? She had nowhere else to go, and the Hendersons had made it very clear what would happen if she complained. So she'd survived. She'd stolen food. She'd hidden it. She'd eaten in the dark and learned to swallow without making noise. She'd been that boy once. Ava set the water glasses on the table. Here you go. Let me know if you change your mind about food. The woman nodded without looking up. The boy didn't move at all. He just sat there perfectly still. Like he'd learned that stillness was safer than movement, that drawing attention was dangerous. Ava retreated to the counter, picked up her rag, started wiping down surfaces that were already clean, but her eyes kept drifting back to that table. The woman excused herself to the bathroom. The moment she disappeared around the corner, everything changed. The boy moved. His hand shot out and grabbed Ava's wrist. She hadn't even realized she'd walked back over there. Her feet had carried her without permission, drawn by something she couldn't name. His fingers were ice cold, wet from the rain and cold from something deeper. Cold from the inside out. Please, his voice was barely a whisper, a breath, a prayer carried on air so thin it almost didn't exist. I've been starving for 5 days. Please help me. 5 days. The words hit Ava like a physical blow. She felt herself sway, felt the room tilt around her, felt something inside her chest crack open and start bleeding. 5 days. This child hadn't eaten in 5 days. She looked down at him. Really looked. Not with the professional waitress mask she wore for customers, but with the raw, undefended part of herself that still remembered what it meant to be invisible and desperate. The bones in his wrist were visible through his skin. His cheeks were hollow, sunken. His lips were cracked and pale. His eyes, God, his eyes were too old. The eyes of someone who'd learned that adults couldn't be trusted, that the world was cruel, that asking for help was dangerous, but sometimes you had to do it anyway because the alternative was worse. What's your name? Her voice came out thick, wrong, like her throat was trying to close around the words. Declan. Declan. She squeezed his hand gently. His bones felt like bird bones under her fingers. Fragile. Breakable. I'm Ava, and I'm going to help you, okay, I promise. His eyes filled with tears, not dramatic sobbing tears, just a quiet overflow. Like his body didn't have the energy for anything more. Like crying was a luxury he couldn't afford. He'll find us, Declan whispered. He always finds us. Who? But the bathroom door opened. Linnea returned to the table, her face somehow even paler than before, her hand still shaking. Declan snatched his hand back. The moment shattered like glass. Ava straightened up. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat, in her temples, in her fingertips. I'll be right back with some more water, she managed to say. She walked to the kitchen. Through the swinging door, into the harsh fluorescent lights and the smell of grease and disinfectant. Jasper looked up from the grill he was scrubbing. His weathered face creased with concern. You okay, kid? You look like you've seen a ghost. I need a plate. Her voice didn't sound like her own. The biggest one you've got. Jasper's eyebrows rose. Table number? The woman and kid by the window. Ava grabbed the counter to steady herself. Pancakes, eggs, bacon, sausage, hash browns, everything. The works. That's gonna be. Put it on my tab. Jasper set down his scrubbing brush. Looked at her for a long moment. He'd worked in kitchens for 40 years. He'd seen everything. Young girls working themselves to death for pennies. Desperate people trying to survive on scraps. The way the world ground people down until there was nothing left. Ava, he said quietly, you can barely afford your rent. I don't care. Her voice cracked, broke. All the professional distance she'd built up over 6 months crumbling in an instant. Jasper, that boy hasn't eaten in 5 days. 5 days, please. Jasper was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned back to the grill and started pulling ingredients from the cooler. Forget the tab, he said gruffly. House covers it. Something in Ava's chest unclenched, just slightly, just enough to breathe. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Bobby finds out I'm giving away free food, he'll have both our heads. Bobby was the owner. He counted every penny like his life depended on it. But Bobby wasn't here tonight. He never worked the slow shifts. Cheap bastard that he was, he let Ava handle the graveyard hours alone. For once, Ava was grateful for his cheapness. She poured a tall glass of milk and carried it out to the table. Linnea looked up with alarm. I didn't order. It's on the house. Ava set the milk in front of Declan. Everyone deserves a little kindness, sometimes. Linnea's eyes filled with tears. I can't pay. I don't have any money. We don't have anything. I know. Those 2 words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning, heavy with recognition. I know, not I'm sorry, not how sad, just I know, because Ava did know. She knew what it meant to have nothing, to be nothing, to disappear into the cracks of a world that didn't care whether you lived or died. Declan was already drinking the milk. He held the glass with both hands, gulping it down so fast that some of it dribbled down his chin. He didn't care, couldn't care, was beyond caring about anything except filling the screaming emptiness inside him. When he finished, he set the glass down carefully, looked at Ava with something she hadn't seen in his face before. Hope, fragile, tentative. But there, the kitchen bell dinged. Jasper slid a massive plate through the window, pancakes stacked 3 high, eggs scrambled and steaming, bacon crispy and perfect, sausage links glistening with grease, hash browns golden brown and crispy at the edges. It was beautiful. It was obscene. It was everything. Ava carried it out. The smell of bacon and pancakes filled the air, rich and heavy and impossible to ignore. She set it down between Declan and Linnea. Share, there's plenty. Declan looked at his mother. His whole body was trembling with want, with need, but he didn't move. He was waiting for permission, trained to wait, trained to need approval for basic survival. Linnea's face crumpled. She nodded once. A jerky, broken movement. Declan attacked the food. There was no other word for it. He didn't use utensils at first, just grabbed a pancake with his bare hands and shoved it into his mouth. Syrup ran down his fingers. He didn't care. He was beyond caring, beyond anything except the desperate need to eat. Linnea picked up a piece of bacon with shaking hands. She took a small bite, chewed slowly, and something in her seemed to crack open. The tears started falling then, silent streams down her cheeks while she ate and cried and tried to hold herself together. Ava stood by the table, not sure what to do. Part of her wanted to sit down with them, to hold Linnea's hand, to tell her everything would be okay. But she'd learned long ago that promises like that were lies, and she'd never lied to another person who was drowning. The corner booth had gone quiet. Ava looked over. The Iron Wolves were watching. All of them. Their conversations had stopped. Their food forgotten. Every single man at that table was staring at her table. At Declan eating like it was his last meal on earth. At the thin arms and hollow cheeks and desperation that radiated off him like heat. Iron was staring hardest. His weathered face had gone still, unreadable. But something moved behind his eyes. Something old and painful and familiar. He said something to Patch, low and quiet. Patch's scarred face went hard. He nodded once. Both men stood up. Linnea saw them coming. Her whole body went rigid. She grabbed Declan's arm, pulled him closer. Her eyes went wide with pure animal terror. We should go. Her voice was high and thin, panic threading through every syllable. Declan, we need to go right now, ma'am. Iron's voice was deep and rough, like gravel being crushed. But somehow, impossibly, it was also gentle. You're not in any trouble. Linnea shook her head frantically. Please, we'll leave. We don't want any problems. Neither do we. Iron pulled a chair from a nearby table and sat down, moving slowly, deliberately, like he was approaching a wounded animal, trying not to spook something already terrified beyond reason. My name's Iron. This here's Patch. We couldn't help but notice your boy's pretty hungry. Declan had stopped eating. He was frozen in place, a piece of sausage still in his hand, watching Iron with frightened eyes. Iron looked at him. Something shifted in the big man's face. A softening, a recognition, like he was seeing something in this child that broke something inside him. Son, he said quietly, you don't need to be scared. Not here. Not of us. Declan didn't respond, just stared. How long since you ate before today? Linnea tried to answer. He's fine, we're fine, 5 days. Declan's voice was small but clear, cutting through his mother's panic with the simple truth. I've been starving for 5 days. The words landed like a bomb in the quiet diner. Ava saw Iron's hands curl into fists under the table, saw the muscle jump in his jaw, saw Patch's scarred face go hard as stone. 5 days, Iron repeated slowly, carefully, like he was testing the words to make sure he'd heard right. Declan nodded. And your mama, she eat anything in those 5 days. Declan looked at Linnea. Linnea made a sound that wasn't quite a tongue. It covered her face with her hands. She gave me her food, Declan said. What we had, she said she wasn't hungry, but I knew she was lying. Iron was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Harder, colder, but still somehow not directed at them. Who's hunting you? Linnea's hands dropped. What? You're running from someone. Iron's eyes never left her face. I've seen that look before, more times than I can count. You're terrified, you're broke, and you're starving yourself to feed your boy. So I'll ask again. Who's hunting you? Linnea shook her head. I can't. If I tell you, if anyone knows where we are. My daddy, Declan spoke up again, his voice flat, empty of everything except truth. He's looking for us. He's a police officer, a sheriff. Iron went very still. He hits my mom, Declan continued. His voice didn't change, didn't rise or fall, just stated facts like he was reading from a book. He used to just hit her, but then he started hitting me too, so we ran away. Declan, Linnea's voice was broken. Baby, you don't have to. He said he'd kill us if we ever left. Declan looked at Iron with eyes that were far too old for his face. He said no one would ever believe us because he's the law. The diner was completely silent now. Every biker at the corner booth was listening. Every single one of them had the same expression on their faces. Cold fury, the kind of anger that didn't burn hot, that didn't explode. The kind that went deep and stayed there. The kind that waited, that planned, that remembered. Iron leaned forward slightly. What's your daddy's name, son? Declan took a breath. Blake Hartwell. He's the sheriff in Madison County. Another pause. Everyone thinks he's a hero. His voice cracked, just slightly, just enough. But he's a monster. Ava felt something shift in the room. The energy changed. What had been tension became something else. Something focused, something dangerous. Iron stood up slowly. He looked at Linnea for a long moment, really looked at her, saw the bruises she was trying to hide under her sleeves, the split lip that was almost healed, the way she held herself like someone who'd learned to expect violence. Ma'am, he said quietly, you and your boy are going to finish that meal. You're going to eat until you can't eat anymore, and then we're going to figure out how to keep you safe. Linnea stared at him. Why would you help us? You don't even know us. Iron's face was stone, but his voice was rough with something Ava couldn't quite identify. Because 23 years ago, he said slowly, my daughter was murdered by a man just like your husband, a man in uniform, a man everyone trusted, and nobody helped her. Nobody saw her. Nobody listened when she tried to tell them what he was. Linnea's hand flew to her mouth. I couldn't save her. Iron's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I live with that every single day, but I can help you, if you'll let me. The silence stretched out, thick and heavy and full of things that couldn't be said. Then Linnea nodded, a small, fragile movement. Iron turned to Ava. You got a place they can stay tonight, somewhere out of sight. Ava's heart hammered in her chest. I have a room, upstairs. It's small, but it's private. Good. Iron's eyes met hers, held. Get them fed. Get them settled. We're going to make some calls. He started walking back toward his booth, then paused, looked back. Ava, right? She nodded. You did good, kid. You paid attention when nobody else would. He looked at Declan, still clutching his sausage eyes wide and uncertain. Sometimes that's all it takes. One person who actually sees. He returned to his table. The bikers huddled together, voices low, phones coming out, plans being made in that quiet, efficient way that spoke of experience, of having done this before. Oliva pulled up a chair and sat down next to Linnea. Eat, both of you. There's plenty more where that came from. Linnea wiped her eyes. I don't understand. Why are strangers helping us? Ava thought about foster home number 4, about the refrigerator lock, about the hunger that had lived in her bones like a second skeleton, about being 12 years old and invisible and so alone she'd thought she might actually disappear. Because sometimes, she said quietly, the world surprises you. Sometimes people actually give a damn. Declan reached out and took her hand. His fingers were still sticky with syrup. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for hearing me. Ava squeezed back. Always, kid, always. The rain kept falling outside, hammering against the windows like it was trying to get in, like the whole world was trying to break down the door. But inside the diner, something had changed. A boy had whispered his pain to a stranger, and that stranger had listened. Now the real work was about to begin. The bikers' conversation grew more intense. Ava caught fragments as she refilled coffee cups, making her rounds, staying professional even though her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Madison County, that's 2 hours east. Know a guy in state police. Owes me a favor. Need documentation, photos, medical records. Can't just disappear them, he'll track her. Iron's voice cut through the murmuring. First things first, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. Patch, get on the phone with your contact at the FBI. Tell him we might have a dirty cop situation. Patch nodded and stepped outside, phone already at his ear. Iron caught Ava's eye and gestured her over. She approached the table, coffee pot in hand like a shield. More coffee. Sit down for a minute. She hesitated, then set the pot on the table and slid into the booth across from him. Up close, Iron looked older than she'd realized. The lines around his eyes were deep, cut into his face by years of sun and wind and things she couldn't imagine. There was a weariness in him that went bone deep. How much did you hear? He asked. Enough. You know this is going to get complicated. It wasn't a question. This Sheriff Blake Hartwell, he's not going to just let his wife and kid vanish. Men like that don't give up. They escalate. Ava nodded slowly. You're putting yourself in the middle of something dangerous. You got any family? Anyone who'd come looking if something happened to you? The question hit harder than she'd expected. No, I aged out of foster care 6 months ago. I don't have anyone. Iron studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then you've got nothing to lose, he said finally. That makes you either brave or stupid. I haven't decided which. Maybe both. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Fair enough. He leaned forward. Listen to me carefully, Ava. This isn't just about hiding a woman and kid for a few days. Blake Hartwell is a county sheriff. He's got resources, connections, authority. If he decides to come for them, he can fabricate charges, issue warrants, make their lives a living hell, all while wearing a badge. So what do? We do what we always do. Iron's voice was quiet but certain. We protect our own, and as of tonight, that woman and that boy are our own. Ava felt something shift in her chest. Our own. She'd never been part of an hour before. She'd always been alone, always on the outside, always the ghost child that nobody saw. What do you need me to do? Iron's eyes met hers. For now, keep them safe, keep them fed, and keep your mouth shut. If anyone comes asking questions, anyone at all, you don't know nothing about nothing. Got it. Got it. Good. He stood up. My boys and I will take shifts watching the parking lot. If anyone comes sniffing around, we'll know about it. Ava nodded and stood too. Iron. He paused. Why do you do this? The club, I mean. Why do you help people like Linnea and Declan? Iron was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rougher than before. Because the system failed my daughter. Failed her completely. She went to the police and they didn't believe her. She went to her family and they told her she was exaggerating. She went to everyone she could think of, and nobody listened. He swallowed hard. So she stayed with him, and he killed her. The words hung in the air like smoke. After the funeral, I made a promise. I swore that I'd spend the rest of my life being the person she needed, the person who actually shows up. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Iron looked at her, really looked at her. Be vigilant. He started toward the door, then stopped. One more thing. That boy Declan. The way you went to him, the way you listened when he whispered. That wasn't just kindness. That was recognition. You knew what he was feeling because you felt it yourself. Ava's throat tightened. Foster care. 12 different homes. Some of them weren't kind. Iron nodded slowly. Then you understand better than most. The invisible ones, the hungry ones, the ones who whisper their pain because no one taught them to shout. His voice softened. They need people like you, Ava. People who remember what it's like to be forgotten. He walked out into the rain. Ava stood there for a moment, the coffee pot cooling in her hand, the sound of rain and distant thunder filling the silence. Then she turned back toward Linnea and Declan. The boy had finished eating. He was leaning against his mother, his eyes heavy, his body finally relaxing for the first time since they'd walked through the door. Linnea looked up as Ava approached. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. Ava kept her voice gentle. I'm going to take you upstairs to my room. It's not much, but it's warm, and it's safe. Linnea's eyes filled with tears again. Why are you doing this? You don't know us. You don't owe us anything. Ava looked at Declan, at the syrup on his chin, at the exhaustion in his eyes, at the fragile flickering hope that she'd helped put there. Because someone should have done it for me, she said quietly, and no one ever did. She helped them gather their things, what little they had, a battered purse, a backpack with a broken zipper, nothing else. Everything they owned in the world fit in 2 hands. As they walked toward the back stairs, Ava glanced out the window. Headlights were cutting through the rain on the highway, moving slowly, too slowly. A sheriff's cruiser. It passed the diner without stopping, but Ava's blood ran cold. He was already looking, and he was close. She hurried Linnea and Declan up the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum, like a warning bell, like the countdown to something terrible. The storm was coming, but this time they were ready. Ava's room was barely bigger than a closet, a single bed pushed against the wall, a dresser with a cracked mirror, a hot plate she wasn't supposed to have, but Jasper pretended not to notice. The paint was peeling in the corners. The window didn't quite close all the way, letting in drafts that made the curtains move like ghosts. But it was warm, and it was hidden. And right now, that was all that mattered. Linnea sat on the edge of the bed. Declan curled up beside her with his head in her lap. The boy had fallen asleep almost instantly, his body finally surrendering to exhaustion now that his stomach was full, now that he was somewhere that felt for just a moment safe. He hasn't slept like this in weeks, Linnea whispered. Her hand stroked her son's wet hair. Gentle, careful, like he might break if she pressed too hard. He's been too scared to close his eyes. Ava sat on the floor with her back against the door. Old habit, always know where the exits are. Always be ready to run. How long have you been running? 5 days. Linnea's voice was barely audible over the rain still hammering against the window. We left in the middle of the night. Blake was passed out drunk. I took his back car keys from the hiding spot he thought I didn't know about. Grabbed Declan and just drove. Does he know which direction you went? Linnea shook her head. I don't think so. I stayed off the main highways. Paid cash for everything until the money ran out 2 days ago. We've been sleeping in the car, rationing the last of our food. Her voice cracked. I gave Declan everything we had. I told him I wasn't hungry, but he knew. Kids always know. Ava thought about the crackers she used to hide in her pillowcase, the way she'd learned to eat silently in the dark so nobody would hear her breaking the rules. The gnawing shame of being so hungry you'd steal food from people who were supposed to take care of you. You did what you had to do, she said. You protected him. Did I? Linnea's laugh was bitter, broken. I stayed with that monster for 8 years. 8 years of being hit, being controlled, being told I was worthless. I kept telling myself it would get better, that he'd change, that I couldn't make it on my own. Tears streamed down her face. And then he hit Declan. He hit my baby. And I still waited 3 more months before I finally ran. What kind of mother does that? The kind who was terrified, the kind who was trapped. Ava leaned forward. I grew up in foster care, 12 different homes. I saw things, Linnea. I saw kids whose parents never came for them at all, never even tried. You came for Declan. You got him out. That's what matters. Linnea wiped her eyes. He'll find us. You don't know Blake. He's obsessed. He told me once that if I ever tried to leave, he'd hunt me down and make me wish I'd never been born. And then he'd take Declan away from me forever. She looked at Ava with eyes full of fear and desperation. He said no court would believe a word I said, not against the word of a decorated sheriff. Is that true, the decorated part? Blake Hartwell is a hero in Madison County. He's been sheriff for 15 years. He solved major cases, brought down drug rings, saved hostages. The newspapers call him the Guardian of Madison. Linnea's voice dripped with disgust. Nobody knows what he's really like. Nobody sees what happens behind closed doors. A knock on the door made both women jump. Ava was on her feet instantly, heart racing, hand reaching for the knife she kept in her pocket. Old survival instinct. Who is it? Iron, open up. She cracked the door, found the big biker standing in the narrow hallway, his face grim, water still dripping from his leather jacket. We've got a problem. Ava stepped into the hall and pulled the door mostly closed behind her. What kind of problem? My guy at the FBI just called back. Iron's voice was low, careful, like he was trying not to wake Declan, but needed her to understand the gravity. Blake Hartwell isn't just some small-town sheriff. He's connected, real connected. He's got friends in state police, friends in the Attorney General's office, even some federal contacts from joint task forces he's worked on. Ava's stomach dropped. What does that mean for Linnea and Declan? It means we can't just hide them for a few days and hope he gives up. Blake's already put out a missing person alert. He's claiming Linnea kidnapped their son during a mental health crisis, that she's a danger to herself and others. That's a lie. Of course it's a lie, bro. Iron's jaw tightened. But it's an official lie now, backed by his badge and his reputation. If any cop in the state spots Linnea, they'll detain her on site and hand Declan right back to his daddy. Ava felt sick. So what do we do? Iron was quiet for a moment, thinking, planning, the way a man thinks when he's been in bad situations before and learned how to survive them. Patch has a contact at a women's shelter, 3 states away, off the grid, run by a woman who used to be married to one of our guys before he passed. They specialize in helping women escape exactly this kind of situation. But getting Linnea and Declan there is going to take planning. We need documents. Mandy, we need transportation, and we need to stay invisible until it's done. How long? 48 hours minimum, maybe 72. Can we keep them hidden that long? Iron's jaw tightened. We're about to find out. One of my boys just spotted a Madison County Sheriff's cruiser parked at the truck stop down the road. Different deputy, not Blake himself, but he's asking questions at the gas station, showing pictures. Ava's blood went cold. He's already here. Close enough. Iron's eyes were hard. Blake must have tracked them this direction somehow. Maybe a traffic camera, maybe a credit card transaction before the money ran out. Doesn't matter how. What matters is we need to move them tonight. Where? I've got a cabin about an hour north of here. It's remote, no neighbors, completely off the books. Linnea and Declan can stay there while we figure out the next steps. Ava nodded. I'll get them ready. Ava. Iron's hand caught her arm, not rough, just firm enough to make her stop and listen. You should stay here. This isn't your fight. You've already done more than most people would. She looked at him steadily. I'm coming. You sure about that? Once you're in, you're in. There's no going back. I've never been sure about anything in my life. Ava pulled her arm free, but that boy in there trusted me with his secret. He whispered it to me because he had no one else. I'm not going to abandon him now. Iron studied her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe? Or respect. All right, get them moving. We leave in 10 minutes. Ava slipped back into the room. Linnea was already awake, alert, her eyes wide with fear. I heard voices. What's happening? We need to go, now. Ava kept her voice calm, controlled. The people looking for you are getting close. We're going to move you somewhere safer. Linnea's face went pale. Blake. Not yet, but someone working with him. Ava grabbed the few things she owned, a change of clothes, the money she'd been saving for rent, her ID. Come on, Linnea shook Declan gently. Baby, wake up. We have to go. The boy stirred, his eyes fluttered open. For a moment he looked confused. Then memory flooded back and his small body tensed. Is he here? Is Daddy here? No, sweetheart, but we need to move. Linnea's voice was steady despite the fear Ava could see in her eyes. The nice people downstairs are going to help us. Okay. Declan looked at Ava. Are you coming too? Ava knelt down beside the bed. Yeah, buddy, I'm coming too. I'm not going anywhere. Something in his face relaxed, just slightly, just enough. They gathered what little they had and crept down the back stairs. The diner was closed now, lights dimmed, but Ava could see bikers stationed at various points around the parking lot, watching, waiting. Dark shapes in darker shadows. Iron met them at the back door. Cars around the side, Patches driving. Keep your heads down until we're on the road. They moved quickly through the rain. Linnea clutched Declan's hand, her body hunched protectively over his. Ava followed close behind, her heart hammering, every nerve on high alert. The car was a nondescript sedan, nothing that would draw attention. Patch was behind the wheel, his scarred face illuminated by the dashboard lights. Get in, quick! Linnea and Declan slid into the back seat. Ava got in beside them. Iron took the front passenger seat. Go, he said. Patch pulled out of the parking lot without turning on the headlights. They drove in darkness for the first quarter mile, then finally flicked the lights on as they merged onto a back road. Ava looked out the rear window. The diner was disappearing behind them, swallowed by rain and night and the vast emptiness of the Arizona desert. We're clear, Patch said. No tail. Iron nodded but didn't relax. Stay on the back roads, avoid the main highway. They drove in tense silence for 20 minutes. Linnea held Declan against her, whispering reassurances into his hair. The boy was awake now, alert, his eyes tracking every shadow that passed the windows. Ava reached over and took his hand. He squeezed back, hard. I used to think monsters lived under beds, he said quietly. But now I know they live in houses. They wear uniforms and badges. They smile at you in public and hurt you when no one's watching. Ava's throat tightened. You're very brave, Declan. I'm not brave, I'm scared all the time. I just learned how to be scared and quiet at the same time. That's survival. And survival is its own kind of courage. The radio crackled. One of the other bikers reporting in from a different vehicle. Iron, we've got a problem. Iron grabbed the radio. Talk to me. Sheriff's cruiser just turned onto Route 12. He's heading your direction. How far back? A pause. Maybe 10 minutes. He's moving fast. Is it Blake? Another pause. Longer this time. Can't tell from this distance. Could be. Patch's hands tightened on the wheel. What do you want me to do? Iron thought fast. Take the next left. There's an old logging road about 2 miles up. It's rough, but it'll get us to the cabin from the backside. The sedan might not make it. It'll make it, or we'll carry them the rest of the way. Just go. Patch took the turn hard, tires squealing on wet pavement. Linnea gasped and pulled Declan closer. The logging road was worse than rough. It was barely a road at all, just two muddy tracks carved through dense forest. The sedan bounced and lurched, bottoming out on rocks and roots, the undercarriage scraping, metal grinding against stone. "Hold on," Patch muttered. "This is going to get ugly." Ava braced herself against the door. Declan had his face buried in his mother's shoulder, his small body rigid with fear. They drove for what felt like forever. The car groaning and scraping through the darkness, tree branches slapping against the windows, the headlights barely cutting through the rain and mist. Finally, mercifully, the trees opened up. A small cabin emerged from the gloom. Rough-hewn logs, a sagging porch, smoke-stained chimney reaching toward the black sky. "We're here," Iron said. "Everyone out, quick." They scrambled from the car. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the cold was biting. Ava helped Declan across the muddy yard while Linnea followed close behind. Iron produced a key and unlocked the door, ushered them inside. "No lights," he said. "Not yet. Patch checked the perimeter. Make sure we weren't followed." Patch disappeared into the darkness. Iron stood by the door, listening, waiting. The cabin smelled like old wood and dust and decades of smoke. Ava could make out basic shapes in the darkness: a table, chairs, a couch, a fireplace. "There's a cellar," Iron said quietly. "If anyone comes, that's where you hide. The entrance is under the rug by the kitchen. You lift the floorboards and climb down. There's supplies down there: water, food, blankets, enough to last a few days if needed." Linnea's voice was shaking. "Do you really think it'll come to that?" "I think Blake Hartwell has spent 15 years pretending to be a hero. I think he'll do anything to protect that image. And I think a wife who can expose his secrets is the most dangerous thing in the world to a man like that." Patch's voice came from outside. Clear, no sign of pursuit. Iron finally allowed himself to relax, just slightly. "All right, we should be safe here for now. But we're not staying. At first light, we move again. I've got people working on transportation and documents. By tomorrow night, you'll be 3 states away, and Blake Hartwell will never find you." Linnea sank onto the couch, pulled Declan with her. "I don't know how to thank you, any of you. You don't even know us, and you're risking everything." Iron sat down across from her. In the darkness, his face was impossible to read. 23 years ago, he said slowly, "I had a daughter. Her name was Lily. She was 22 years old, just starting her life. She met a man who seemed perfect, charming, successful, a police officer." He paused. "Sound familiar?" Linnea nodded silently. "The first time he hit her, she called me. I told her to leave him immediately. She said she would, but she didn't. Because he apologized. Because he swore it would never happen again. Because she loved him. And love makes us believe impossible things." Iron's voice grew rougher. "The second time he hit her, she went to his precinct to file a report. They laughed her out of the building, told her she was imagining things, told her Officer Bradley was a good man and she should be grateful to have him." Ava felt Linnea reach for her hand in the darkness. She held it tight. "The third time he hit her, she tried to leave. She packed a bag, got in her car, started driving. He caught up to her 40 miles outside of town." Iron's voice cracked, just barely. "They found her body in a ravine 3 days later. The official report said she lost control of the vehicle. An accident. Case closed." "Oh God," Linnea whispered. "I knew the truth. Everyone knew the truth. But Bradley was protected. His department closed ranks. The investigation went nowhere. He's still a cop today. Retired now, living on a pension, playing golf, going to church on Sundays." Iron's hands were fists in his lap. "I couldn't save Lily. I failed her. But I made a promise at her grave. I swore that I would spend the rest of my life protecting the women and children that the system refuses to see. The ones who whisper their pain because no one taught them to scream." He looked at Linnea, then at Declan, then at Ava. "That's why we do this. That's why the Iron Wolves exist. We're not heroes. We're just men who've seen too much evil and can't stomach seeing anymore." The cabin fell silent, except for the soft patter of rain on the roof and the sound of Declan's quiet breathing. The boy's small voice broke the silence. "I'm sorry about your daughter, Mr. Iron." Iron's breath caught. "Thank you, son." She would be proud of you for helping us. Something crossed Iron's face, visible even in the darkness. Pain and pride and grief all tangled together. I hope so, he said quietly. I hope so. A phone buzzed. Patch checked the screen and swore softly. What? Iron demanded. Report from our guy at the truck stop. That sheriff's cruiser that was asking questions? It wasn't a deputy. Patch looked up, his scarred face grim. It was Blake himself. He's here, in person. Linnea made a sound like a wounded animal. He tracked us somehow, Patch continued. Our guy says Blake was showing pictures around, asking about a woman and boy matching Linnea and Declan's description. Someone must have talked. Did they say which direction we went? No, but Blake's not leaving. He's set up in the parking lot. He's waiting. Iron stood up, his body tense. He's trying to flush us out. He knows we're close. He just doesn't know exactly where. What do? We wait. We stay quiet. We don't move until we're sure it's safe. Iron's voice went hard as iron, the name he'd earned. And if he finds us, then we stop running and start fighting. The hours crawled by. Ava sat with Declan while Linnea tried to sleep, though sleep seemed impossible. The boy was quiet, his hand still holding Ava's, his eyes open in the darkness. Ava. Yeah, buddy. My dad used to be nice. When I was little, he used to read me stories and take me to the park. Declan's voice was barely a whisper. Then something changed. I don't know what. He started getting angry all the time. He'd yell at Mom, break things, punch holes in walls. I tried to be good. I tried to be so good so he wouldn't be mad. But it never worked. Ava's heart broke into 1,000 pieces. That's not your fault, Declan. None of this is your fault. You know that, right? Sometimes grown-ups get broken inside, and they hurt the people around them. But that's their brokenness, not yours. He told me I was the reason he got mad. He said if I wasn't so stupid, if I didn't make so many mistakes, he wouldn't have to hit me. He lied. Ava's voice was fierce. That's what people like your dad do. They make you think you're the problem so you won't see that they're the monster. Declan was quiet for a long moment. I don't want to be like him when I grow up. You won't be? How do you know? Ava squeezed his hand. Because you're already better than he'll ever be. You're kind, Declan. I can see it. You're scared and hurt and hungry. And the first thing you did when you had food was look at your mom to make sure she was eating too. That's not something monsters do. That's something good people do. You think I'm good? I know you're good. Declan leaned against her shoulder. I'm glad you heard me. In the diner. When I whispered, I was so scared no one would listen. I'll always listen, Declan. Always. Outside, the rain had stopped. The silence was somehow more unnerving than the storm had been. Patch appeared in the doorway. You need to see this. Iron was on his feet immediately. What is it? Headlights, coming up the main road. Still about a mile out, but they're heading this direction. Linnea sat up, fully awake, her eyes wild with fear. Iron's voice was calm but urgent. Everyone in the cellar, now! They moved quickly. Ava helped Linnea pull up the rug and the hidden floorboards. A ladder descended into darkness. Go, Iron said. Don't make a sound, no matter what you hear up here. Understand? Linnea went first, then Declan. Elena paused at the top of the ladder. What about you, but We'll handle it, just stay hidden. Eva looked at him for a long moment. Then she descended into the darkness. The floorboards closed above her head. The world went black. She could hear Linnea breathing beside her, fast and panicked, could feel Declan pressed against her side, trembling. Above them, footsteps, voices, the sound of a car door slamming, then a voice that made Linnea's breath stop entirely. I know you're in there, Linnea. I've always known where you are. Did you really think you could run from me? Blake Hartwell had found them. Linnea's hand clamped over Declan's mouth before the boy could scream. Ava could feel both of them shaking in the darkness, their terror so thick it was almost physical. Blake's voice cut through the floorboards above them like a knife. Come on out, sweetheart. Let's talk about this like adults. You know I hate it when you make me chase you. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, moving across the cabin floor directly above their heads. Ava pressed herself against the cold earth wall of the cellar. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure it would give them away. Iron's voice came next, calm and steady. "Can I help you with something, Sheriff? You can step aside and let me collect my family. This is a domestic matter. None of your concern." "Funny thing about that, I don't see any family here. Just me and my buddy having a quiet night." "Don't play games with me." Blake's voice hardened. "I know they're here. I tracked the car. I know exactly what you people are trying to do. And I'm telling you right now, it ends tonight. What we're trying to do," Iron's voice dripped with contempt. "We're just a couple of old veterans enjoying some peace and quiet. No law against that, is there, Sheriff?" More footsteps. Multiple people moving around up there. "How many men had Blake brought?" "I've got a warrant," Blake said. "Signed by Judge Patterson himself. Linnea Hartwell is wanted for questioning in the kidnapping of my son. If you're harboring her, that makes you an accessory." Kidnapping, Iron's laugh was cold. A mother running away with her own child to escape a man who beats them isn't kidnapping. It's survival. Silence. Heavy and dangerous. When Blake spoke again, his voice had dropped to something low and deadly. "I don't know what lies she's been telling you, but Linnea is mentally unstable. She's been struggling with delusions for years. I've been trying to get her help, but she refuses treatment." His voice took on a concerned tone. Perfectly practiced. "Now she's taken our son and disappeared in the middle of the night. I'm worried sick about both of them. If you care about that boy's safety at all, you'll tell me where they are." "That's real touching," Iron said. "And if you care about wasting my time, you've succeeded. We don't know anything about your family problems." "Then you won't mind if we search the property." Ava heard cabinets being thrown open, furniture being overturned, the sounds of destruction as Blake's men tore through the cabin. Declan whimpered against his mother's hand. Linnea held him tighter, her whole body shaking with silent sobs. Footsteps directly above them. Someone stomping on the floor, testing the boards. "What's under this rug?" Blake's voice. Close, too close. "Storage, old boxes and junk. Nothing interesting." "Move it." Ava stopped breathing. She heard the rug being pulled aside, heard boots on the floorboards that separated them from the nightmare above. "It's just flooring," Patch said. "Solid. See for yourself." A pause. Blake's boots were inches from the hidden entrance. Ava could see tiny slivers of light between the boards. If he looked closely, if he noticed the seams. "Sir," a new voice. "One of the deputies. We've searched everywhere. There's no one here." "They're here. I know they're here." "With respect, sir, maybe your information was wrong. Maybe they moved on." Blake's voice was pure venom. "They didn't move on. That bitch is hiding somewhere, and these lowlifes are helping her. We can't prove that. And if we keep searching without finding anything, it's going to look bad. Real bad." Another long pause. Ava could feel Blake's rage radiating through the floorboards like heat from a fire. "Fine," he said finally. "We're done here for now." His boots moved toward the door, then stopped. "But I want surveillance on this property 24/7. The moment anyone moves, I want to know about it." "Yes, sir." "And you." Blake's voice was directed at Iron now. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot. I don't know who you think you are, but you picked the wrong fight. I've destroyed better men than you." "I'm sure you have," Iron replied evenly. "But I'm still standing. And so are they. Wherever they are." The cabin door slammed, engines started, headlights swept across the walls. No one moved, no one breathed. 5 minutes passed, 10, 20. Finally, a knock on the floorboards above them. 3 short raps, the all-clear signal. Ava's legs nearly gave out as she climbed the ladder. Linnea came up next, still clutching Declan. Her face streaked with tears. Iron was standing by the window, watching the road. "They're gone for now, but he left 2 deputies at the end of the access road. We're boxed in." "What do we do?" Linnea's voice was raw with fear. "We wait for daylight. Then we figure out another way out." Patch was on his phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. He hung up and turned to Iron. "Bad news. My contact at the FBI says Blake's been busy. He's filed reports with 3 different agencies claiming Linnea is mentally disturbed and dangerous. He's got a psychologist on record supporting his claims." "Can we fight it?" "Not quickly. These things take time to unravel. Lawyers, depositions, evidence, months, maybe years. Linnea made a sound like she'd been punched. I don't have months. I don't have days. He's going to take Declan away from me. He's going to win. No. Ava's voice surprised everyone, including herself. He's not going to win. They all turned to look at her. He's had 15 years to build his image, she continued, her voice growing stronger. 15 years of being the hero, the guardian, the perfect sheriff, but all that power is built on one thing, his reputation. If people knew the truth, if they saw what he really is, all of that crumbles. And how exactly do we show them the truth? Patch asked. Ova looked at Linnea. You have evidence, don't you, photos, medical records, something? Linnea hesitated. There's a file on Blake's computer at home. He keeps records of everything, financial stuff mostly, but there are other things too. She couldn't finish the sentence. Photos he took of you, Ava said quietly, after he hurt you. Linnea nodded, tears streaming. He kept them like trophies. I found them once, years ago. He didn't know I knew. Iron stepped forward. If we could get those files, we could destroy him. Send them to every news outlet in the state. Let the whole world see what the Guardian of Madison really is. But his computer is in Madison County, Patch said. In his house, that's 2 hours away, behind enemy lines. How are we supposed to get there when we can't even get off this property? Ava took a breath. You can't, but I can. Everyone stared at her. Think about it. Blake doesn't know who I am. He saw me at the diner for maybe 30 seconds. I'm nobody, a random waitress. If I show up in Madison County, no one's going to connect me to Linnea and Declan. It's too dangerous, Linnea said. If he catches you, he won't catch me, because he's not looking for me, he's looking for you. Ava turned to Iron. Can you get me to Madison County? Iron was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. You understand what you're volunteering for. You'd be breaking into a sheriff's house. If you get caught, he'll bury you. There won't be a trial, there won't be justice, you'll just disappear. I know. And you still want to do it. Ava looked at Declan. The boy was watching her with those two old eyes, the eyes that had seen too much pain for anyone his age. That kid trusted me with his secret, she said quietly. He whispered it to me because he had no one else. I'm not going to let him down. Iron nodded slowly, a new respect in his eyes. All right, here's what we're going to do. The plan came together quickly. One of Iron's men would create a distraction at the end of the access road, drawing Blake's deputies away long enough for Ava to slip through. Another biker would drive her to the edge of Madison County, where a local contact would pick her up and take her the rest of the way. Linnea gave her detailed instructions, the house layout, the alarm codes, the location of Blake's home office. The computer password is Declan's birthday, Linnea explained, her voice steady despite her fear. 061215. He never bothered to change it. There's a back door that leads to the kitchen. The alarm panel is right inside. You'll have 30 seconds to enter the code before it triggers. What's the code? 0814, August 14th, the day we got married. Linnea's laugh was bitter. He always said that was the best day of his life, the day I became his property. Ava memorized every detail, the location of the file on the computer, the fastest road out of the house, the contact who would be waiting 2 blocks away. If anything goes wrong, you run, Iron told her. Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to fight. Just run and get to the extraction point. Understand? Understood. Dawn was still 2 hours away. Ava sat with Declan while the final preparations were made. The boy was awake, watching her with solemn eyes. You're going to help us, he said. It wasn't a question. I'm going to try. My dad is dangerous. He hurts people, and they can't stop him because he has a badge. I know. What if he hurts you? Ava took his hand. Then at least I'll know I tried. Sometimes that's all you can do, Declan. Try, even when you're scared. Even when the odds are against you. You try anyway, because some things are worth fighting for. Am I worth fighting for? The question hit her like a fist to the heart. Yes, God, yes. You are absolutely worth fighting for. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. Declan was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a coin, worn smooth by years of handling. This was my grandfather's, he said. He gave it to my mom before he died. She gave it to me when we ran away. She said it was for luck. He pressed it into Ava's palm. I want you to have it. For luck. Ava's eyes stung with tears. Declan, I can't take this. It's too important. That's why I want you to have it. Important things should go to important people. She closed her fingers around the coin. I'll bring it back. I promise, Amos. I know you will. The signal came 20 minutes later. Time to move. Ava hugged Linnea, then knelt down and hugged Declan. The boy held on tight, his small arms surprisingly strong. Be brave, he whispered. You too, buddy. She slipped out the back door into the gray pre-dawn light. The air was cold and damp, heavy with the smell of pine and wet earth. Iron was waiting by a motorcycle. You ready? As I'll ever be. He handed her a helmet and a burner phone. My number's programmed in. Call the second you're clear. Ava climbed onto the back of the bike. The engine roared to life. They shot through the trees on a path so narrow it was barely visible. Branches whipped past her face. The world became a blur of green and brown and gray. At the main road, Iron stopped. Distraction goes off in 30 seconds. When those cruisers move, you move. My guy will be waiting in a blue pickup at the gas station 1 mile east. Thank you for everything. Iron's eyes were hard but kind. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you are back safe with those files. Ava dismounted and crouched in the brush beside the road. 30 seconds, 20, 10. A massive explosion of light and sound erupted somewhere to the west. Fireworks, industrial grade by the look of them, lighting up the sky like it was the 4th of July. The 2 deputy cruisers at the end of the access road immediately roared to life, sirens wailing as they raced toward the disturbance. Ava ran, her feet pounded against the wet pavement. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. The gas station emerged from the morning mist. A blue pickup sat in the lot, engine running. She yanked open the passenger door and threw herself inside. The driver was a woman, maybe 55, silver hair and calm eyes. You, Ava? Yeah. I'm Grace, Iron's sister. Buckle up. The truck pulled onto the road, heading east, away from the chaos, away from Blake's deputies, toward Madison County, toward the monster's lair. Grace drove in silence for a few minutes, then glanced at Ava. You know what you're doing, honey? Not really. Good. The ones who think they know everything are the ones who get caught. She looked at Ava again. Iron told me about you, about what you're doing for that woman and her boy. I'm not doing anything special. Just what anyone would do. That's where you're wrong. Most people would look the other way. Most people would tell themselves it's not their problem. You didn't. Ava stared out the window at the passing landscape. I was that boy once, different circumstances, but the same hunger, the same fear, the same feeling that nobody would ever see me. She paused. Someone should have helped me. No one did. I'm not going to let that happen to Declan. Grace nodded slowly. Iron's daughter was the same way. Couldn't pass a stray dog without bringing it home. Couldn't see someone hurting without trying to fix it. Her voice caught. That's what got her killed in the end. She cared too much about the wrong person. You knew her. I was her godmother. I held her the day she was born. I was at her funeral. Grace's hands tightened on the wheel. I've spent 23 years wishing I'd done more. Wishing I'd listened when she tried to tell me something was wrong. So when Iron called and asked me to help, there wasn't a single part of me that could say no. They drove in silence for a while. The landscape changed as they moved east. More houses, more cars, more signs of civilization. Madison County's 20 minutes out, Grace said. I'll drop you 2 blocks from Blake's house. You'll have to go the rest of the way on foot. Okay. You remember everything Linnea told you, the layout, the codes, the location of the files? Every word. Good, because once you're in there, you're on your own. If something goes wrong, there's no backup coming. You understand? I understand. Grace reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. Panic button. You press this, it sends your location to Iron's people. They'll come running, but by the time they get there, it might be too late. So only use it if you have no other choice. Ava took the device and slipped it into her jacket pocket, next to Declan's lucky coin. One more thing, Grace's voice softened. Whatever happens in that house, don't let him see you. Blake Hartwell is smart, and he's ruthless. If he catches even a glimpse of you, he'll hunt you down, and he won't stop until he finds you. I won't let him see me. Promise me. I promise. The truck slowed. They were in a residential area now, quiet streets lined with neat houses and manicured lawns, the kind of neighborhood where everyone waved to their neighbors and nobody locked their doors, the kind of neighborhood that hid monsters. This is it, Grace said, pulling to a stop. 2 blocks north, then left on Maple. The Hartwell house is the third one on the right, big white colonial with a wraparound porch. Can't miss it. Ava took a deep breath. Thank you, Grace. Don't thank me. Just come back alive. Grace grabbed her hand and squeezed. And when you do bring me proof that bastard deserves everything that's coming to him. Ava stepped out of the truck. The morning air was cold against her face. The neighborhood was still quiet, most people not yet awake. She watched the blue pickup drive away, then turned and started walking. 2 blocks north, left on Maple. The Hartwell house loomed before her, exactly as Linnea had described. Big, white, perfect. The kind of house that screamed respectability and success. The kind of house that hid monsters. Ava circled around to the back, staying low, staying quiet. The back door was where Linnea said it would be. The keypad glowed faintly beside it. She pulled out the lockpick kit Patch had given her. 30 seconds of careful work, and the lock clicked open. The alarm panel began its warning beep. 30 seconds. Ava punched in the code. 0814. The beeping stopped. She was in. The house was dark and silent. Blake was still out, searching for Linnea and Declan, thank God. She moved through the kitchen, into the hallway, toward the office at the back of the house. The office door was closed but unlocked. Inside, a large desk dominated the space. On it, a computer, waiting. Ava sat down and turned on the machine. The password prompt appeared. Declan's birthday, 061215. The screen unlocked. She found the folder exactly where Linnea said it would be, hidden in a subdirectory labeled insurance. Ava clicked it open, and her blood went cold. Photos? Dozens of them. Linnea with black eyes, split lips, bruises covering her arms and back. Declan with handprint marks on his face. Medical records that had been falsified. Reports that had been buried. But that wasn't the worst of it. There were other files, other names, other women. Blake Hartwell hadn't just been abusing his wife. He'd been doing this for decades, and he'd kept records of every single victim. Ava's hands were shaking as she plugged in the USB drive. This wasn't just evidence against one man. This was a pattern of systematic abuse stretching back 30 years. Deputies who'd helped him cover it up. Judges who'd looked the other way. A whole network of corruption that reached into every corner of the county. The files began to transfer. 60%, 70, 80. A car door slammed outside. Ava's heart stopped. She looked out the office window. A sheriff's cruiser sat in the driveway. Blake Hartwell was home. 90%. The progress bar crawled across the screen while Ava's heart threatened to explode through her chest. She could hear Blake's boots on the front porch. The jingle of keys. 92%. The front door open. 95%. Footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, deliberate, coming closer. 98%. Ava's fingers hovered over the USB drive. She couldn't pull it now. The files would corrupt. Everything would be lost. 99%. The footsteps stopped. Blake was in the kitchen. She could hear him opening the refrigerator. The crack of a beer can. 100%. Ava yanked the USB drive and shoved it into her pocket. She killed the monitor but left the computer running. Any change in the fans or noise would alert him. The office had one window. She'd scoped it when she came in. It led to the side yard, hidden from the driveway by a row of hedges. She eased the window open, 1 inch at a time, praying the old frame wouldn't squeak. Blake's footsteps started again, coming down the hallway, toward the office. Ava threw herself through the window, hit the ground hard, rolled, and pressed herself flat against the foundation of the house. The office light turned on. She could see Blake's shadow moving behind the curtains. He was in the room, right where she'd been sitting 30 seconds ago. Don't move. Don't breathe. Don't exist. The shadow paused. Blake was looking at something, the computer. Had she left something out of place, a drawer slightly open, a chair at the wrong angle? Ava's lungs burned. She needed air. She needed to run, but she couldn't move. Any sound, any motion, and he'd see her through the window. The shadow moved away. The office light turned off. She heard the TV turn on in another part of the house. Sports commentary. Blake was settling in. Ava waited. 1 minute, 2, 3. Finally, she crawled along the foundation until she reached the back corner of the house. Then she got to her feet and ran. She didn't stop until she was 3 blocks away, hidden in an alley behind a dry cleaning shop, her hands shaking so badly she could barely pull out the burner phone. Iron answered on the first ring. Talk to me. I got it. Her voice was ragged, breathless. I got everything. It's worse than we thought, Iron. So much worse. Where are you? 3 blocks south of the house, behind a dry cleaner on Oak Street. Stay there. Grace is circling back. She'll be there in 5 minutes. Iron. Blake almost caught me. He came home while I was still downloading. I barely got out. But you did get out. You did the impossible, Ava. Now we finish this. The blue pickup appeared at the end of the alley exactly 5 minutes later. Ava threw herself into the passenger seat. Drive, please, just drive. Grace didn't ask questions. She hit the gas and the truck shot forward, putting distance between them and the monster's lair. They were 10 miles outside Madison County when Ava finally stopped shaking. She pulled out the USB drive and stared at it. Such a small thing, such an innocent-looking piece of plastic. But inside it was enough evidence to destroy a man's entire empire. You okay, honey? Grace asked. No, but I will be. You get what you needed. More than what I needed. Grace, this goes deeper than just Blake. There are deputies involved, judges, county officials. It's a whole network of people who've been helping him cover up abuse for decades. Grace's jaw tightened. Then we don't just take down Blake, we take down all of them. They drove in silence for a while. The landscape shifted as they moved west. Back toward the cabin. Back toward Linnea and Declan and Iron. Ava's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. She opened it, and her blood turned to ice. It was a photo of Linnea and Declan, clearly taken through a window. They were inside the cabin, sitting on the couch. Linnea's face was visible. Declan was leaning against her shoulder. The caption read, "Did you really think I wouldn't find them?" Ava's hands went numb. Grace, we have a problem. She showed her the phone. Grace's face went white. That's the cabin. How did he? He must have had someone watching the property, someone we didn't see. Grace grabbed her own phone and dialed. Iron, pick up. Come on, come on. No answer. She tried patch. Nothing. Something's wrong, Ava said, her voice rising with panic. He's not at his house anymore. He got that photo and he went straight to the cabin. He's there right now. Grace pushed the accelerator to the floor. The truck surged forward, engine screaming. How far are we? 40 minutes, maybe 30 if I push it. Ava tried Iron's number again, then Patch's, then the general line for the Iron Wolves that Iron had given her. Nothing. No one was answering. He's got them, she whispered. Oh God, he's got them all. Grace's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. We don't know that. Maybe they saw him coming. Maybe they got out. And maybe they didn't. Maybe right now, Blake is doing exactly what he promised Linnea he'd do. The truck flew down the highway at 90 miles an hour. Ava watched the mile markers blur past, counting down the distance to the cabin, praying they wouldn't be too late. 20 miles out, her phone buzzed again. Another photo. This one showed Iron, on his knees, hands zip-tied behind his back. His face was bloody. Patch was beside him, similarly bound. 3 other bikers Ava didn't recognize were lined up against the cabin wall. The caption, "Your friends made a mistake protecting what's mine. Now they're going to pay for it. And you're next." Ava's vision went red. He's going to kill them. He's going to kill all of them. Ava, listen to me. Grace's voice was sharp, cutting through her panic. We can't go in there blind. Blake's got deputies with him. He's got weapons. We need backup. There is no backup. Everyone's already at the cabin. Then we call the real police, state troopers, someone outside his network, and tell them a decorated sheriff is holding people hostage. They'll never believe us, not without proof. Ava looked at the USB drive in her hand. Proof. Grace, how fast can you get me to a news station? What? The evidence. If I can get it to a reporter, if I can get it on the air. Blake loses everything. His reputation, his authority, his power. Without those things, he's just a man, and men can be stopped. Grace thought for a moment. There's a TV station in Riverside, about 15 miles from the cabin. I know someone who works there. She owes me a favor. Call her now. Grace dialed with one hand while steering with the other. Bryn, it's Grace. I need you to meet me at the station in 20 minutes. This is life or death. I'm not exaggerating, and a woman and child are going to die if you don't help me. Ava couldn't hear the response, but Grace's face relaxed slightly. Thank you. We'll be there. She hung up. Bryn says she'll meet us in the parking lot. She's a producer. She can get something on the air fast if the story's big enough. It's big enough, trust me. They pulled into the TV station parking lot 18 minutes later. A woman in her 40s was waiting by the back entrance, her face tight with concern. Grace, what the hell is going on? No time to explain everything. This is Ava. She has evidence that Sheriff Blake Hartwell of Madison County has been abusing women for 30 years. Right now, as we speak, he's holding hostages at a cabin about 15 miles from here. He's going to kill them if we don't stop him. Bryn's eyes went wide. Blake Hartwell, the guardian of Madison. Are you serious? Ava thrust the USB drive into her hands. Photos of his victims, medical records he falsified, reports he buried, names of every deputy and judge who helped him cover it up. It's all there. Put it on the air. Let the whole world see what he really is. Bryn stared at the drive. If this is real, it's real, and every minute you waste is a minute closer to innocent people dying. Bryn's professional instincts kicked in. Come with me, both of you. They rushed through the back entrance of the station. Bryn led them to an editing bay, plugged in the USB drive, started scrolling through the files. Her face went pale. Oh my God. You see it now. This is massive. This is career-ending. This is prison for life. Can you air it? Bryn was already picking up a phone. Mike, I need you in editing bay 3 now. Drop whatever you're doing. This is the biggest story of our careers. Within minutes, a team had assembled. Ava watched as they pulled up file after file, photo after photo. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. How fast can you get this on the air? Ava demanded. We can interrupt programming in 10 minutes. But I need a reporter to give context. I'll do it. Everyone turned to look at Ava. I was there. I saw what he did. I can tell the story. Bryn hesitated. You're not a professional. This is going to be watched by millions of people. I don't need to be professional. I need to tell the truth. And the truth is that a monster in a badge has been destroying lives for 30 years while everyone looked the other way. That ends tonight. Bryn made a decision. Get her in makeup. We go live in 8 minutes. The next few minutes were a blur. Someone powdered her face. Someone clipped a microphone to her shirt. Someone positioned her in front of a camera. You'll be talking directly to the anchor, Bryn explained. She'll ask you questions. Just answer honestly. The files will be displayed on screen as you talk. What about Blake? What about the hostages? I've already called the state police and the FBI. With this evidence going public, they have no choice but to act. Units are being dispatched to the cabin right now. Ava closed her eyes, thought about Declan, about his small fingers pressing that lucky coin into her palm, about his whispered words in the diner that had started everything. I've been starving for 5 days. Please help me. I'm ready, she said. The red light on the camera blinked on. The anchor's voice was steady, professional, the kind of calm that came from years of delivering news, good and bad, to millions of people who trusted her to tell them the truth. Good evening. I'm Rachel Torres, and we're interrupting regular programming with a breaking news alert that will shock communities across the state. With me now is Ava Morgan, who has brought forward disturbing evidence about a prominent law enforcement official. Ava, can you tell us what you've discovered? The camera was on her, millions of eyes watching. Ava had never felt more terrified in her life. But she thought about Declan, about Linnea, about Iron and his dead daughter, about all the invisible people who had been failed by the system, who had whispered their pain and been ignored. She took a breath and began to speak. 5 days ago, an 8-year-old boy whispered 3 words to me. He said, "I've been starving for 5 days." He was running with his mother from a man who had beaten them for years, a man who swore he'd kill them if they ever tried to leave. The photos began to appear on screen. Linnea's bruised face, the split lip, the black eyes, the marks on her arms that told stories of violence stretching back years. That man is Sheriff Blake Hartwell of Madison County. More photos. Declan's small body, handprint bruises on his back, his face, his arms. Blake Hartwell has been abusing women for over 30 years. He's used his badge and his reputation to silence his victims and destroy anyone who tried to help them. He's got deputies in his pocket, judges who look the other way. A whole network of people who have protected him while innocent women and children suffered. The files scrolled across the screen now. Names, dates, medical records that had been falsified, police reports that had been buried, a paper trail of corruption that stretched back 3 decades. Ava's voice grew stronger. Right now, as I speak to you, Sheriff Hartwell is holding hostages at a cabin outside Riverside. He's got guns, he's got men, and he's got nothing left to lose because his entire world is about to collapse. She looked directly into the camera, into the homes of millions of people watching, into the eyes of every person who had ever been hurt and told it didn't matter. To anyone watching who has ever been hurt by this man or anyone like him, I want you to know something. You are not invisible. Your pain matters. Your story matters. And tonight we are going to make sure the whole world finally sees the truth. The broadcast continued. Files scrolled. Bryn provided context and commentary. The phone lines lit up as tips poured in from other victims, other witnesses, other people who had kept silent for too long because they thought no one would believe them. And somewhere in the night, sirens began to wail. At the cabin, Deputy Miller sat in his cruiser watching the perimeter. His phone buzzed, a text from his wife. "Turn on the news, now." He switched on the small TV mounted to his dashboard. The emergency broadcast filled the screen. Miller watched as Ava spoke. As the photos appeared, as the full scope of Blake Hartwell's crimes unfolded in high definition for the entire world to see. Then he saw a name, a photo, a woman he recognized, his sister, victim number 17, beaten so badly by her boyfriend that she'd spent 3 weeks in the hospital. Miller had never known who did it. She'd refused to say, just disappeared one day and never came back. Now he understood why. The boyfriend had been one of Blake's deputies, and Blake had made the whole thing go away. Miller looked at his phone. The group chat with the other deputies on scene was exploding. Everyone watching, everyone seeing, everyone finally understanding what they'd been protecting. Deputy Garcia texted, "Did you know about this?" Miller's hands were shaking. "No, did you? Oh, Jesus Christ, what do we do?" Miller looked toward the cabin, toward Blake inside holding Iron and the others at gunpoint, toward the man who'd been their boss for years, who they'd trusted, who they'd followed, who they'd helped cover up 3 decades of abuse without even knowing it. "We don't die for him," Miller typed. "That's what we do." He opened his car door, stepped out, unclipped his service weapon and set it on the hood of the cruiser. Garcia emerged from the other cruiser, did the same. One by one, the deputies Blake had brought with him laid down their weapons and walked toward the cabin with their hands raised. Inside, Blake was pacing, gun in one hand, phone in the other, trying to call his contacts, his friends in high places, the people who owed him favors. But the phones weren't being answered. Not anymore. Iron knelt on the floor, hands zip-tied behind his back, blood dripping from a cut above his eye where Blake had hit him with the gun. Patch was beside him. 3 other bikers lined up against the wall. In the cellar below, Linnea held Declan so tight she was afraid she might hurt him. But she couldn't let go. Couldn't loosen her grip even a fraction. Because if Blake found them, if he got his hands on her son, she knew exactly what would happen. Blake's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and went white. It was a news alert. His face, his name. The words breaking news in red letters across the top. He turned on the TV mounted above the fireplace. And there was Ava, the waitress from the diner. The nobody he'd barely noticed, sitting in a television studio telling the world every secret he'd kept buried for 30 years. His face went from white to red, rage and fear and disbelief mixing into something toxic. You, he snarled at Iron. You did this. You and that bitch waitress. Iron looked up at him, blood on his face, but his eyes were clear and steady. We didn't do anything except tell the truth. You did this to yourself. Blake raised the gun, pointed it at Iron's head. Tell me where Ava Morgan is, right now, or I start shooting. Go to hell. Blake cocked the gun. The click was loud in the quiet cabin. Then the front door burst open. Deputy Miller stood in the doorway, hands empty, no weapon. Sheriff, it's over. Blake whirled. Get out. This is official business. No, sir, it's not. Miller's voice was steady. We just watched the broadcast. We know what you've been doing. We know about the women, the cover-ups, everything. That's all lies, fabricated evidence. You know me, Miller. You know what kind of man I am. I thought I did. Miller took a step forward, but I just saw a photo of my sister, victim number 17, beaten half to death by Deputy Morrison. You made that disappear. You protected him. And you let my sister suffer because it was convenient. Blake's hand shook. I was protecting the department, protecting good men from false accusations. You were protecting yourself. Garcia appeared behind Miller. We're done, Sheriff, all of us. We're not dying for you. More footsteps, the other deputies filing in, standing together, united against the man they'd followed for years. Blake looked around, saw the betrayal in every face, saw his empire crumbling in real time. You don't understand, he said, his voice taking on a desperate edge. Everything I did to protect this county, to keep people safe. Those women were lying. They were trying to destroy good men. My sister wasn't lying, Miller said quietly, and I don't think any of them were. The sound of helicopters filled the air. Spotlights swept across the cabin. Through the windows, Blake could see vehicles arriving. State police, SWAT, FBI, an army descending on his position. A megaphone crackled to life. Sheriff Hartwell, this is the state police. You are surrounded. Release your hostages and come out with your hands up. Blake's laugh was bitter, broken. This is insane. I'm the sheriff. I'm the law. You can't do this to me. You did this to yourself, Iron said from the floor. You hurt people for 30 years and thought you'd never have to answer for it. But every secret comes out eventually. Every monster gets caught. Blake turned the gun on him again. Shut up. Just shut up. Sheriff, Miller's voice was calm, reasonable. Please, don't make this worse than it already is. Let these men go. Come outside. Face what you've done. I haven't done anything. Blake's voice brought to a shout. This is a conspiracy. A witch hunt. I'm the victim here. The megaphone again. Sheriff Hartwell, you have 5 minutes to release your hostages. If you do not comply, we are coming in. Blake looked around the cabin. Trapped, cornered, his whole world falling apart around him. I've got explosives, he shouted toward the door. In the cellar. You rush in here, everyone dies. The deputies froze. SWAT would have to verify the threat. That would buy time to think, time to find a way out of this. But there was no way out. Blake knew it. Everyone knew it. Outside, the state police commander listened to Blake's threat, swore quietly. Get a bomb squad on standby. Nobody moves until we verify. A negotiator picked up the megaphone. Sheriff Hartwell, let's talk about this. Nobody needs to get hurt. Inside the cabin, Blake's mind raced. There were no explosives, but they didn't know that. As long as they thought there might be, they'd hesitate. They'd negotiate. He just needed time to figure out what to do with these hostages, how to turn this situation around, how to make people understand that he was the good guy, that everything he'd done was justified. His phone buzzed again. Another news alert. The broadcast was still going. More victims coming forward, more evidence being revealed, his entire network being exposed on live television. It was over, really over, no coming back from this, unless he could get to Ava Morgan, make her recant, force her to admit it was all lies. But where was she? A car pulled up outside, Grace's blue pickup. Ava stepped out, against every piece of advice she'd been given, against the FBI agents yelling at her to stay back against common sense and survival instinct. Ava walked toward the perimeter. "Ma'am, you can't be here," a state trooper said, moving to block her. "I'm the witness from the broadcast. I'm Ava Morgan." The trooper's eyes widened. "You need to stay back. This is an active hostage situation. That boy in there trusted me with his secret. I'm not staying back." The state police commander approached, a tall man with iron gray hair and the bearing of someone who'd spent decades making life and death decisions. "Ms. Morgan, I'm Commander Hayes. You're the one who brought this evidence forward." "Yes." "Then you know how dangerous Blake Hartwell is. You cannot go in there." "He won't shoot me, not in front of all these cameras." Ava gestured to the news helicopters circling overhead, the TV crews filming from safe distances. "His whole game was being the hero. He won't destroy that image by murdering someone on live television." Hayes studied her. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Let me talk to him, through the megaphone. He doesn't know where I am. He's been looking for me. I can get his attention. Maybe get him to surrender without anyone getting hurt. Or he shoots the hostages the moment he hears your voice." "He won't. He's still trying to figure out how to spin this, how to make himself look like the victim. He needs to know what I have, what I've done, before he can plan his next move." Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then he handed her the megaphone. "You've got one chance. Make it count." Ava took the device. Her hands were shaking, but she thought about Declan's coin in her pocket, about the boy who'd whispered his truth to a stranger because he had nowhere else to turn. She raised the megaphone. "Blake, it's Ava Morgan. I'm the one who took your files." Inside the cabin, Blake froze. He moved to the window, looked out. There she was, the waitress, standing in front of state police cruisers, megaphone in hand. "You," his voice was raw, furious. "You destroyed everything. You destroyed yourself." Ava's voice rang out clear and strong. 30 years of hurting people, it just caught up with you." "I'll kill them all," Blake gestured wildly with the gun. "Everyone in here dies because of you. Declan's watching on TV right now." Ava's voice softened, changed tactics. "You want your son to see you murder people? Or do you want him to see you face justice like a man?" Blake's hands shook. "Declan's my son, mine. You took him from me. Linnea took him from you to protect him because you hit him, Blake. You hit your own child. I was disciplining him. A boy needs discipline. My father disciplined me and I turned out fine." "Did you?" Ava's voice cut through his defenses. "Because from where I'm standing, you're about to throw away everything. Your career, your freedom, your life. All because you couldn't stop hurting the people who loved you." Blake was silent. The gun still pointed at iron, but his hand was trembling. "You always told Declan that real men take responsibility," Ava continued. "You told him that cowards run from their problems. Show him you are not a coward, Blake. Show him you are man enough to face what you've done." "I didn't do anything wrong." "Then prove it in court, with lawyers and evidence and a fair trial. Not like this, not with guns and hostages and threats." Inside the cabin, Iron watched Blake's face, saw the conflict there, the rage warring with something else. Fear, maybe. Or the first creeping realization that this was really happening, that the life he'd built on lies and violence was over. "You don't understand," Blake said, his voice carrying through the broken window. "I'm the sheriff. I protect people. I keep them safe. Everything I did was to maintain order, to keep bad people from destroying good families. You were the bad person, Blake." Ava's voice was gentle now, almost kind. "You destroyed families. You hurt children. You made people afraid to sleep in their own homes. Lily couldn't get justice 23 years ago. My foster siblings couldn't get justice. But Declan can. Linnea can. All the women you hurt can finally get justice. Give them that, Blake. Be the man you always pretended to be. Blake looked around the cabin, at the deputies who'd abandoned him, at the hostages on the floor, at the guns and helicopters and spotlights outside, at the ruins of everything he'd built. I'll go to prison, he said quietly. Yes, you will. They'll take everything from me. You took everything from them first. Blake was quiet for a long time, the gun still in his hand, still pointed at Iron's head. One squeeze of the trigger, and all of this could end differently. But the cameras were watching. The whole world was watching. And somewhere his son was watching too. Did he want Declan's last memory of his father to be murder on live television? Or did he want a chance, however small, to show his son that he could do one decent thing? One right thing, even if it came 30 years too late. Blake's hand slowly lowered. The gun dropped to his side. I want a lawyer, he said. I want the best lawyer money can buy. You can have a dozen lawyers, Ava said, but first you let those men go. You walk outside, and you face what you've done. Blake looked at Iron, at the blood on the big man's face, at the quiet dignity with which he knelt there, even zip-tied and beaten. This isn't over, Blake said. Yes, it is, Iron replied. You just don't know it yet. Blake pulled a knife from his pocket, cut the zip ties holding Iron and the others. Get out, all of you. The deputies helped Iron to his feet, Patch, the other bikers. They moved toward the door, slowly, carefully, not sure if Blake would change his mind. Wait, Blake said. Everyone froze. Linnea, Declan, I know you're in the cellar. Silence. You can come out now. I'm not going to hurt you, not anymore. The floorboards lifted. Linnea emerged first, pale, shaking. Declan behind her. The boy's eyes were huge in his thin face. Blake looked at his son, really looked at him. Saw the fear there, the way the boy flinched when Blake moved, the way he stayed behind his mother like she was a shield. I'm sorry, Blake said. The words sounded strange in his mouth, like a foreign language he'd never learned to speak. I'm sorry I hurt you. Declan didn't respond, just held his mother's hand tighter. Linnea moved past Blake without looking at him, walked out the door with her son, into the lights and cameras and safety of the state police perimeter. Blake stood alone in the empty cabin, gun still in his hand, the last seconds of his old life ticking away. Then he set the gun on the table, walked to the door, and stepped outside with his hands raised. The cameras captured everything. The moment the guardian of Madison fell, the moment 3 decades of secrets finally came to light, the moment justice delayed, but not denied, finally arrived. Blake's hands were cuffed behind his back. An officer read him his rights, the words he'd read to hundreds of suspects over the years, now being read to him. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Blake's face was stone, but his eyes were empty. The light had gone out of them. The man who'd spent 15 years being a hero in public and a monster in private was gone. What remained was just a shell. Ava watched from behind the police line, watched them load Blake into a cruiser, watched the taillights disappear down the road. Then she ran toward the cabin, toward the figures emerging into the light. Iron saw her first. His bruised face split into something that might have been a smile. Hell of a thing you did tonight, kid. Then Declan broke free from his mother, ran toward Ava with his arms outstretched. She caught him, held him tight, felt his small body shaking with relief and exhaustion, and the kind of tears that came from surviving something you weren't sure you'd survive. You came back, he whispered against her shoulder. You promised, and you came back. Always, Ava said, her own tears falling now. Always, buddy. Linnea approached, her face streaked with tears, but her eyes clear for the first time since Ava had met her. I don't know how to thank you for everything, for risking your life, for saving us. You saved yourself, Ava said. You got Declan out. You ran. You fought. I just helped finish what you started. She pulled the lucky coin from her pocket, held it out to Declan. The boy looked at it, then pushed her hand back. No, it's ours now. We're family. And standing there in the chaos of police lights and helicopters and news cameras, Ava realized something she'd never quite believed before. She wasn't alone anymore. The trial of Blake Hartwell lasted 3 weeks. Ava sat in the gallery every single day, watching as the evidence she'd risked her life to collect was presented piece by piece, document by document, photo by photo. 47 women came forward, 47 victims who had stayed silent for years because they thought no one would believe them, because Blake had convinced them they were worthless, that their pain didn't matter. Now, one by one, they took the stand, and they told their stories. The beatings, the threats, the way Blake had used his badge and his power to make them feel helpless. Deputy Morrison testified about how Blake had ordered him to bury evidence, to falsify reports, to intimidate witnesses. He cried on the stand, said he'd known it was wrong but had been too afraid of Blake to refuse. Judge Patterson was forced to recuse himself from every case in Madison County. His career over, his reputation destroyed. The entire network of corruption that Blake had built over 3 decades crumbled. 14 deputies were charged with conspiracy and obstruction of justice. 3 judges were removed from the bench. The Madison County Sheriff's Department was dissolved and rebuilt from scratch. But nothing hit harder than when Linnea took the stand on the 8th day. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back, no makeup to hide the faded bruises that still shadowed her cheekbones. She spoke for 2 hours, her voice steady despite the tears that occasionally fell. She told the jury about 8 years of living in fear, about being hit, controlled, told she was worthless, about the nights she'd hidden in closets with Declan, trying to muffle his cries so Blake wouldn't hit him too. About the time Blake had broken 3 of her ribs and then driven her to the hospital himself, standing beside her bed while she told the doctors she'd fallen down the stairs. "He told me no one would ever believe me," Linnea said, looking directly at the jury. "He said he was the law, and the law protected its own. For 8 years I believed him. I thought I was invisible. I thought my pain didn't matter." She paused, her eyes finding Ava in the gallery. "Then my son whispered his truth to a stranger. And that stranger listened. That's all it took. One person who was willing to see us. One person who refused to look away." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Blake Hartwell was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted, victims crying, families holding each other, the sound of relief and vindication in grief for all the years that had been lost. Blake showed no emotion, just stared straight ahead as the guards led him away, as the door closed behind him, as the last chapter of his life as a free man ended. But the ripple effects went far beyond one county in Arizona. Ava's broadcast had sparked a national conversation about abuse of power, about domestic violence, about how systems protected predators when those predators wore badges. Lawmakers proposed new legislation. Training programs were implemented. Oversight committees were formed. And in homes across the country, women who had stayed silent for years finally found the courage to speak, because one person had listened, because one story had been told, because one secret had finally been brought into the light. The first anniversary of that rainy night at the truck stop came faster than Ava expected. So much had changed that it felt like a lifetime had passed. She'd used the money from the TV interviews to finish her degree. Social work, specializing in child protective services. She'd graduated top of her class, been offered jobs at a dozen different agencies. She'd chosen the one that let her work with kids aging out of foster care. The invisible ones, the hungry ones, the ones who whispered their pain because no one had taught them how to shout. Linnea had moved to a small town 300 miles from Madison County, far enough that she'd never have to see Blake's face again, never have to drive past the house where she'd been hurt, never have to live in fear that he might find her. She'd gone back to school, finished her nursing degree, was working at a community health clinic that served low-income families. The fear had finally left her eyes, replaced by a calm strength that Ava had never thought she'd see. Declan was thriving, 13 years old now, honor roll student, captain of his soccer team. The kid who'd been too scared to eat was now the first one to share his lunch with anyone who needed it. He'd started a peer support group at his school for kids dealing with difficult home situations, for kids who felt invisible. "I want them to know they're not alone," he'd told Ava. I want them to know someone will listen. Iron had kept his word. The Iron Wolves had established a formal program to help families escape domestic violence. They worked with shelters, provided transportation, offered protection when the system failed. They'd helped over 200 families in the past year. But more than that, they'd become Ava's family. Every Thursday night, she drove out to the old truck stop diner, where everything had started, where a boy's whisper had changed the course of so many lives. The Iron Wolves still gathered there, taking over their corner booth, filling the room with their rumbling voices and leather-clad presence. And now Ava sat with them, not as a waitress, not as an outsider, as one of their own. On this particular Thursday, the anniversary of that night, the diner was more crowded than usual. Linnea and Declan had driven up for the occasion. Grace was there. Even Bryn from the TV station had come. They'd pushed several tables together to accommodate everyone. The food kept coming, plate after plate, and the stories flowed like water. "Remember when Ava almost gave me a heart attack?" Patch said, laughing. "She comes out of Blake's house with him pulling into the driveway, and she just texts us like it's nothing. Got the files, almost got caught, on my way back." "I was trying to stay calm," Ava protested. "Calm? You were breaking into a sheriff's house with him 30 seconds away from walking through the door. That's not calm. That's insane." "The good kind of insane," Arn said quietly. "The kind that saves lives." Linnea reached across the table and squeezed Ava's hand. "I still can't believe you did that. You risked everything for people you'd known for a few hours. You would have done the same." "I don't know if I would have. That's the truth." Linnea's voice was soft. "I spent 8 years being too scared to fight back. You fought back when it mattered. You got Declan out. That's the only thing that counts." Declan, who had been quietly listening to the adults, spoke up. "Can I say something?" Everyone turned to look at him. He stood up, tall for his age now, with his mother's kind eyes and a confidence that had grown stronger with every year away from Blake. "Go ahead, buddy," Ava said. 5 years ago, I was the most scared I'd ever been in my life. I hadn't eaten in 5 days. I thought I was going to die. And even if I didn't die, I thought I'd be trapped with my father forever. I thought there was no way out." His voice was steady, clear, the voice of someone who'd learned that his words had power. "Then I walked into this diner and I saw Ava. I don't know why, but something told me I could trust her. Something told me she would listen. So I whispered. It was all I had the courage to do, just a whisper." He looked around the table at all the faces watching him. She could have ignored me. She could have decided it wasn't her problem. She could have walked away and forgotten about me. That's what most people do. They see someone hurting and they tell themselves it's not their business. Declan's voice grew stronger. But Ava didn't walk away. She listened. She acted. She risked her life to save mine. And because of that, I'm standing here today. My mom is free. We have a home. We have a future. All because one person decided that a whispered cry for help was worth hearing. He pulled something from his pocket. The lucky coin, worn smooth by generations of handling. "My grandfather gave this to my mom. She gave it to me. I gave it to Ava the night she went into my father's house. She gave it back when she came home safe." Wait, Declan looked at Ava with tears in his eyes. But it was never about luck. It was about courage, about compassion, about being willing to stand up for someone even when it's dangerous, even when it's easier to look away. He walked around the table and placed the coin in Ava's palm, closed her fingers around it. "This belongs to you now, because you taught me what real heroes look like. They don't wear capes. They don't have superpowers. They're just ordinary people who choose to see the invisible ones, who choose to hear the whispers, who choose to care when caring costs something." Ava's vision blurred with tears. She pulled Declan into a hug, holding him tight against her heart. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "Every single day I'm so proud of you." "I'm proud of you too," he whispered back. "You saved my life. I'm never going to forget that." When they finally pulled apart, Iron was on his feet, his weathered face wet with tears he didn't bother to hide. "I want to make a toast," he said, his gravel voice rough with emotion. 23 years ago, I lost my daughter. I thought my life was over. I thought there was nothing left worth fighting for. He looked around the table, at all the faces gathered there. Then I met you people. Linnea with more courage than anyone I have ever known. Declan who turned his pain into purpose. Grace who never stopped believing. Patch and the boys who ride through hell without flinching. His eyes landed on Ava. And you, a kid who aged out of foster care with nothing. A kid who knew what it meant to be invisible, to be hungry, to be forgotten. A kid who should have been too broken to care about anyone else. Iron's voice cracked. But you weren't broken. You were strong, stronger than you knew. And when a scared little boy whispered his secret to you, you didn't just hear him. You saved him. You saved all of us. He raised his glass. To Ava Morgan, the girl who listened when no one else would. The girl who proved that one person can change everything. To Ava, the table echoed. Ava stood up, her own glass trembling in her hand. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got lucky. Lucky that I was in the right place at the right time. Lucky that I met people who were willing to fight alongside me. Lucky that Declan trusted me with his truth. She looked at the faces around the table. Her family, not by blood but by choice. By shared pain and shared purpose and shared determination to make sure no one else suffered the way they had suffered. But if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that we're never as alone as we think we are. There are people out there who care. People who will stand up for us when we can't stand up for ourselves. We just have to be brave enough to ask for help. She raised her glass to whispers, to the courage it takes to speak them, and to the people who are brave enough to listen. To whispers, everyone echoed. They drank. They ate. They laughed and cried and told stories late into the night. And when the diner finally closed and everyone said their goodbyes, Ava stood alone in the parking lot, looking up at the stars. So much had changed since that rainy night 5 years ago. She'd gone from invisible to unstoppable, from survivor to fighter, from alone to surrounded by family. But some things hadn't changed at all. She still worked with kids who were hungry and scared and convinced no one would ever see them. She still listened for the whispers that most people missed. She still believed that every person, no matter how small or broken, was worth fighting for. Iron appeared beside her, his bulk a comforting presence in the darkness. You okay, kid? Better than okay. You know, Iron said slowly, I've been thinking about what Declan said, about how you taught him what real heroes look like. He gives me too much credit. No, he doesn't. Iron's voice was firm. You don't see yourself clearly, Ava. You never have. You look in the mirror and you see a foster kid who got lucky, but that's not what the rest of us see. What do you see? Iron was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. I see my daughter, the way she should have been. The woman she could have become if someone had listened to her the way you listened to Declan. Ava's throat tightened. Iron. Lily was just like you. She couldn't walk past someone hurting without trying to help. She believed the best in people even when they didn't deserve it. And in the end, that belief cost her everything. He turned to face Ava, his eyes bright with tears. But you're different. You're just as kind, just as brave. But you're smarter. You know when to fight and when to run. You know how to protect yourself while protecting others. You're everything Lily could have been if she'd had someone in her corner. Iron put a heavy hand on her shoulder. I couldn't save my daughter. That's something I'll have to live with for the rest of my life. But I can watch over you. I can make sure you have the backup she never had. And I can tell you something I wish I'd told her every single day. His voice broke. I'm proud of you. Not for what you did, but for who you are. You're the best of us, Ava. Don't ever forget that. Ava threw her arms around him, hugging him as tightly as she could. The big man's arms wrapped around her, solid and warm and safe. Thank you, she whispered, for everything, for believing in me, for fighting with me, for giving me a family when I didn't have one. You always had a family, Iron said gruffly. You just hadn't met us yet. They stood there for a long time, two broken people who had somehow made each other whole. Finally, Ava pulled back. I should go, early shift tomorrow. New case, a 12-year-old girl who ran away from home. Nobody knows why. But you're going to find out. I'm going to try. Iron nodded slowly. That's all any of us can do. Try. Even when we're scared. Even when the odds are against us. We try anyway. Because some things are worth fighting for. Yeah, Ava said. Some things are. She walked to her car, paused at the door and looked back at the diner one last time. This was where it had all started. A hungry boy, a desperate mother, a whispered plea for help, and a choice, a simple, terrifying choice to see someone who was invisible, to hear someone who was silent, to care about someone the world had forgotten. That choice had changed everything. Not just for Declan and Linnea, but for Ava herself. It had transformed her from a survivor into a warrior, from alone into family, from broken into whole. She got into her car and started the engine. Tomorrow there would be a new child to help, a new whisper to hear, a new battle to fight. But tonight she would drive home with a full heart and a clear conscience, knowing that she had made a difference, knowing that somewhere out there a boy who had once been starving was now helping others, that a woman who had once been trapped was now free, that a network of rough leather-clad bikers had become unlikely angels for families in crisis, all because she had listened. The highway stretched out before her, dark and empty. But Ava wasn't afraid of the darkness anymore. She'd learned something precious in the past 5 years. The darkness wasn't something to fear, it was something to fight. And she would keep fighting every day, for every invisible child, for every silenced voice, for every whispered cry that deserved to be heard. Because that was who she was now. Not a foster kid who aged out with nothing, not a waitress trying to survive, not a victim of a system that had failed her. She was Ava Morgan, protector of the invisible ones, listener of whispers, fighter for the forgotten, and she was just getting started. The next morning, Ava walked into her office at Child Protective Services. Her desk was already covered with case files, each one representing a child in crisis, each one a story that needed to be heard. She picked up the first file, the 12-year-old runaway. Her name was Sophie. Ava read through the notes. Sophie's parents claimed she was troubled, rebellious, difficult. They said she'd run away before. They said she'd come back when she got hungry enough. But something in the file caught Ava's eye. A note from Sophie's teacher, buried at the bottom of the stack. Sophie has been withdrawn lately. She flinches when touched. She wears long sleeves even in warm weather. I'm worried about her, but when I asked if everything was okay at home, she just smiled and said everything was fine. Ava's heart clenched. She knew that smile. She'd worn it herself for years. The smile that said everything was fine when everything was falling apart. The smile that hid bruises and fear and desperate silent screaming. She picked up her phone and dialed her contact at the police department. I need everything you have on Sophie Martin's case, and I need it now. 3 hours later, Ava was sitting in an interview room at a youth shelter downtown. Sophie had been found sleeping under a bridge, cold and hungry and terrified. The girl looked up when Ava walked in. Her eyes were hollow, her face pale, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to disappear. Ava recognized that posture. She had held herself the same way for most of her childhood. She sat down across from Sophie and simply waited. No questions, no pressure, just presence. The silence stretched out for a long time. Finally, Sophie spoke, her voice barely a whisper. You're not going to send me back, are you? That depends. Why don't you want to go back? Sophie's eyes filled with tears. You wouldn't believe me. Nobody ever believes me. Ava leaned forward, her voice soft but firm. I'll believe you. Whatever you tell me, I'll believe you. Because I know what it's like to have a secret that feels too big to share. I know what it's like to whisper your pain and have no one listen. She reached out and gently took Sophie's hand. I'm listening now, and I promise you, whatever you say, you won't have to face it alone. Sophie stared at her for a long moment. The tears spilled over, streaming down her cheeks. And then she began to talk. It was the same story Ava had heard 100 times, the story that never got easier to hear. But she listened anyway. She listened with her whole heart, just as she'd listened to Declan 5 years ago, because that's what you did for the invisible ones. You saw them, you heard them, you fought for them, even when it hurt, even when it was hard, even when the world told you to look away. 2 weeks later, Sophie was safe. Her parents were under investigation. She'd been placed with a foster family that Ava had personally vetted, people who understood trauma, who knew how to help a child heal. Ava visited her every week, bringing books and chocolate and the one thing Sophie needed most, someone who believed her. "Thank you," Sophie said one afternoon, her voice stronger now, her eyes brighter, "for listening, for believing me when nobody else would." Ava smiled, reached into her pocket and pulled out the lucky coin, the one Declan had given her 5 years ago, the one that had traveled through generations, carrying hope and courage and the belief that things could get better. "A boy gave this to me once," Ava said, pressing it into Sophie's palm. "He said important things should go to important people. I want you to have it now." Sophie looked at the worn coin, then back at Ava. "But it's yours. It's special to you." "It is special, and so are you. One day, when you're strong enough, you'll pass it on to someone who needs it more than you do. That's how it works. We help each other. We lift each other up. We make sure no one has to fight alone." Sophie closed her fingers around the coin. "I want to be like you someday. I want to help people the way you help me. You will, I know you will." Because that was the truth. The beautiful, powerful truth that Ava had learned from a starving boy in a truck stop diner. Pain could be transformed into purpose. Suffering could become strength. And the whispers of the broken could become the battle cries of warriors. All it took was one person willing to listen, one person willing to see, one person willing to care. Ava walked out of the youth shelter into the afternoon sun, her phone buzzed with another case, another child in crisis, another invisible soul waiting to be seen. She answered the call and started walking toward her car. The work was never done. The fight was never over. There would always be another whisper, another cry for help, another person drowning in silence. But that was okay, because Ava wasn't alone anymore. She had Iron and the Iron Wolves. She had Linnea and Declan. She had a whole network of people who refused to look away. And together they would keep listening, keep fighting, keep saving the ones the world forgot. Because heroes don't need capes or superpowers. They just need to care enough to hear a whisper. And brave enough to answer. Ava got into her car, started the engine, and drove toward the next child who needed her. The highway stretched ahead, full of possibility, full of purpose. And somewhere in her pocket, a lucky coin waited, ready to be passed on to the next person who needed to believe that they mattered, that they were seen, that they were worth fighting for. The whisper that had started everything had become a roar, and it would never be silenced again.